we thought that both of our parents were dead.
He discovered where she lived, and to her horror, she says showed up at her house in Florida with a gun at 4:30 in the morning and fired through her front door.
At that point, I took action and neutralized the threat.
Although today didn't go as we wanted it to, I'm glad I got my truth out and our story was told.
In early July 2021, Ava Majuri, a 15-year-old TikTok star, experienced one of the most horrific incidents of her life when she was attacked by 18-year-old Eric Rohan Justin, who had been stalking her. Ava's father, a retired law enforcement officer, quickly sprang into action to take down the threat. The family is all right, but the incident left an unerasable impression on the young TikTok star's life. But what really happened? And why did the stalker come to target a 15-year-old? What will happen to Ava's father? Let's explore. Some people associate social media fame with something unrealistic and impractical, which can be true in some cases. But if you use these online platforms responsibly, it can become a beneficial addition to your life. Ava Majuri was one of those people who treated social media and popularity fame with enthusiasm and responsibility. Most of her videos contained dancing, singing, and lighthearted content. You could tell that she really embraced her Gen Z side and made it a part of her livelihood. With more than 1 million followers, the teen thrived off her virtual environment.
In our generation, everything nowadays is all about social media and having clout or the numbers behind your name.
I mean, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Snapchat could potentially be amazing virtual spaces if you want them to be. However, there are always two sides to everything. For every positive, there's a negative. It doesn't mean that social media is bad or that Ava is using it in a negative sense. It just means that when a person puts themselves at the center of attention, it can make them vulnerable to negative things. In this case, Ava experienced a horrific side of virtual fame in an extremely blunt way. So Ava started her TikTok career when she was 13 years old, hoping to take off and become a well-known influencer. She achieved stardom at such a young age, which is a good thing because she could be exposed to amazing opportunities that could benefit her in the future. Except it also opened her up to becoming a potential victim of online creeps and stalkers. According to the teen, an 18-year-old fan named Eric Rohan Justin had just reached out to her months prior to the horrific incident. At first, she wasn't alarmed because a lot of people reached out to popular influencers and content creators hoping to connect with them. However, after a while, the messages became more and more frequent. Eric was reported to have sent her hundreds of messages on her social media accounts. Eventually, he began reaching out to Ava's fans and messaging them relentlessly as well. It was like he was obsessed with Ava and had to speak to her every second. Ava and her friends became increasingly annoyed with this guy and wanted him to stop messaging them. So what Ava decided to do was she sold him 2 of her selfie pictures so he would stop bothering her.
I sold him 2 or 3 pictures of me smiling.
The 15-year-old thought she took care of the problem, but not long after she sold him the pictures, Eric messaged her again. This time, he asked her to send him explicit photos. Ava was extremely disturbed by his request. She told her parents, who decided to have a word with this young man.
Started asking for booty pics and feet pics.
I had an opportunity to actually text this person and said, hey, she's a minor and you need to not contact her anymore, and we notify the authorities.
Keep in mind that Ava was a minor and Eric was an adult. Yes, being 18 doesn't mean you're mature enough to be an adult, but from a legal standpoint, Eric should have known his boundaries. After this ordeal, Ava blocked the 18-year-old on all of her social media accounts and continued with her life. The teen and her parents expected Eric to get over his obsession and not reach out again. They didn't really think that much of the situation. After all, Ava is a young TikTok star and she's bound to run into challenging situations. But unbeknownst to them, the 18-year-old wasn't really ready to give up so easily. Eric decided he was going to become a stalker. And it was never revealed whether Eric suffered from any sort of mental illness or disorder, but from his actions, we could tell that he wasn't in the right mindset. I mean, who asks a 15-year-old for explicit pictures? He's either not in his right mind or was in the process of becoming a predator. Some people might think that the age difference isn't a problem. You're technically still a kid at 18, but even if this were to occur between two adults and one of the parties wasn't interested, this should have been enough for Eric to move on and stop bothering Ava. It's not a bad thing for someone to seek out an intimate or romantic relationship online or with their idol, but it has to be consensual. So when Eric could not reach Ava, he tried to contact her friends and classmates. And he eventually managed to get a hold of someone who attended the same school as Ava and got them to sell him information about the TikTok star. We've all heard about creepy, obsessed fans, but this is another level of absurdity. Two people are to blame in this equation. One is Eric, and the other is the guy who supplied the private information to him. Why would you give someone you don't know information about your classmate? How desperate are you to make some money? Or the better question would be, how much money would inspire you to put someone in danger? Clearly, this tragic incident could have been avoided if the classmate had relayed this information to an authority figure or Ava herself. It's shocking how shallow and callous some people are. In July 2021, the inevitable happened. After Eric got Ava's home address, he traveled from Maryland all the way to Florida with a firearm and attempted to break into Ava's home by firing through her front door. Eric's intent was clear as day. He wanted to take Ava's life for ignoring his messages and refusing to send him pictures of herself. Ava's father, Rob Majuri, is a former law enforcement officer, and when he saw that his family was endangered, he had no choice but to act.
At that point, I took action and neutralized the threat.
Eric ended up succumbing to his injuries before help could arrive. Officers who responded to the scene reported that a man was fatally injured during the home invasion, and no one was arrested. There's no doubt that this was an act of self-defense. Shortly after this incident, the family decided to relocate, and Ava switched to homeschooling because she didn't feel safe being in that environment. The incident disrupted Ava's life and made it harder for her to enjoy her online and social experiences. Her life was turned upside down by someone who felt so entitled to her and couldn't take no for an answer. Also, remember the unnamed classmate who was selling Ava's information to her stalker? Well, it turns out he is also a stalker. After the horrific incident, Ava decided to seek an injunction against the classmate who had supplied her information to Eric. An injunction is very much like a restraining order. It can protect the rights of individuals or entities when there is a threat of harm, violation of rights, or ongoing harm that needs to be stopped or prevented. The name of Ava's classmate was never revealed due to him being a minor and not being found guilty of any crime. But Ava had sought the injunction because she felt unsafe around the classmate. She believed that he was stalking her and almost caused her life. He was one of the reasons why Ava had to switch to virtual school, because even after her ordeal with Eric, this person continued to be a nuisance to her. Ava decided to pursue legal action when she saw her classmate had posted a picture of themselves operating a firearm.
I was terrified. I took myself out of many things that I love, being around my friends in school. I modified my schedule so I couldn't see people. I took myself out of soccer as we were in states mid-season.
The TikTok star was afraid to be anywhere near this person, and she has every right to be. It's amazing how this person wasn't even apologetic for almost causing someone to lose their life. Even if they didn't do it on purpose, they were a contributor. This person should have been charged with some kind of misdemeanor. Ava shouldn't have to work so hard to seek protection from a classmate who was clearly a threat. However, the court didn't believe that the concern was serious enough to grant an injunction.
Of him at the gun range. It was undisputed. We're not directed towards the petitioner and cannot be an act of stalking under the statute. Although the court does think that it might be a good idea for the parties to remain separate from each other and to not have any contact, I can't enter an injunction to keep parties away from each other simply to keep the peace. when they're not able to behave civilly towards each other.
Yes, the court isn't wrong in its ruling because it can't give everyone an injunction or restraining order based merely on suspicion. But at the same time, Ava has been a victim of stalking. Someone literally traveled from Maryland to Florida to end her life. So she has every reason to be concerned, especially when the person she's trying to restrict played a role in her attempted murder. Who's to say it won't happen again? I mean, Eric Justin lived hundreds of miles away from her, yet he still showed up at her front door. If there's a will, there's a way. Unfortunately, Ava still couldn't convince the court to grant her protection.
Although today didn't go as we wanted it to, I'm glad I got my truth out and her story was told.
Instead of spiraling down the negativity route, Ava chooses to use this time to recover and bounce back from the terrifying experience. She wants her story to serve as a cautionary tale for young people who are actively pursuing social media stardom or simply use social messaging platforms. Yes, Ava is still active on her social media. Some people raised the question of why the teen's parents allow her to continue her TikTok career.
Even afterwards, people seem to say, why would you allow this to continue? It became such a part of her personality and her being that to take it away would maybe harm her more.
The simple answer is that social media isn't to blame. Yes, the reason why Ava's life was endangered was because she's a popular influencer, but it isn't her fault that she was being followed by a creep, and it definitely wasn't the platform's fault either. The only person to blame here is Eric Justin, the person who would have been a bad person with or without social media. In this case, TikTok was only a tool this person used to get to Ava. Technically, any tool could be used for bad purposes, but it doesn't mean that the tools they use are evil or dangerous. Crimes have been happening way before social media was invented. A person could be stalked or harmed without TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube. Additionally, it's not Ava's fault for being targeted by a creep. She's a victim, and you can't blame a victim for being a target.
I feel like we shouldn't get into the area of victim blaming. Here's a young girl, 15 years old. She's making like $2,000 a video at sometimes. She's making a lot of money doing this. She enjoys doing it. And so to question her parents for allowing her to continue doing that puts the blame on her. I feel like as a society, we need to step away from blaming the victim and blaming that person who traveled from Maryland with a shotgun, who clearly has some mental problems. That's just a larger picture of what's going on in our society and the untapped or the unchecked mental health crisis that we're in as a nation.
The teen is currently dedicating her social media pages to raise awareness to cyber stalking and promote online safety. Yes, some people are concerned for her safety, and so are her parents. But taking away her social media privileges isn't going to make the situation any better. Instead, she should be taught how to use social media safely and responsibly, because the upcoming generations will all be exposed to these online sharing sites. There's no way to prevent them from using it. For all children and adults who are out there using social media, you should learn to protect yourself from potential harm. There are a few ways to keep yourself safe, like being cautious and avoiding sharing personal information. The less information predators have, the harder it is for them to locate you. Only accept friends or follow requests from people that you know and trust. Be wary of accepting requests from strangers, even if they have mutual connections. Also, if you encounter any form of harassment, bullying, or threatening behavior, report it to the platform administrators and, if necessary, local law enforcement. Block and unfriend individuals who make you feel uncomfortable or exhibit suspicious behavior. Do what Ava did and limit communication with them as much as possible. Avoid sharing your real-time location on social media, and be cautious about geotagging your posts or photos. It would be helpful to learn about common online stalking tactics and signs of predatory behavior. Knowing what to look for can help you recognize potential threats. Lastly, trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, it isn't right. If you suspect someone is stalking or harassing you, take it seriously and act accordingly. Do you think Ava should have been granted the injunction? Why or why not? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications.